They lied to you. And it wasn't just a little white lie. It was the biggest omission in modern history. While you grew up believing that Earth was the center of space exploration, an unknown object was silently orbiting above our heads, observed by generations of scientists and purposefully ignored by those who rule the world. NASA knows, the military knows, but you're only finding out now. And you can bet after this, you will never look at the sky the same way again. This satellite wasn't launched by any space agency. It was there even before the invention of the rocket. And worse, as early as 1899, Nikola Tesla picked up signals that, according to him, came from space and were intelligent. Coincidence? The documents that disappear, the radio signals that make no sense, the photos from the STS-88 mission that show something that shouldn't be there. All of this forms a puzzle that the elite tries to hide, but it's falling apart, piece by piece. So the question is no longer if the Black Knight exists. The question is, why did they never tell you about it? Prepare to dive into one of the most bizarre, hidden, and dangerous theories of the modern world. And be warned, this story has connections to UFOs, religion, mythology, and even the possibility that you are living in a controlled simulation. Don't believe it? Then hold on tight, because if all this is true, maybe the Guardian is already watching you. Many people have heard bits and pieces about it, but few know where the theory of Project Bluebeam actually comes from. The man behind it all is Serge Monast, a Canadian investigative journalist, who back in the 1990s claimed that NASA, yes, the same NASA that sends robots to Mars, was involved in a secret global plan. Monast said the goal was simple, yet terrifying. Unite the world under one religion and one government using cutting-edge technology to create a mass illusion. Sounds like a movie script? Maybe, but he swore it was all real. What's even more intriguing is that he published these ideas in books and gave public lectures, but he didn't last long. In 1996, Serge Monast died of a sudden heart attack, and of course that only poured gasoline on the conspiracy fire. Theorists say his death was conveniently too quick right after he claimed to be under surveillance. And let's be honest, how many times have we seen this happen to people who tried to expose something too big? That's when things start getting deeper. According to Monast, NASA not only had the tech to project 3D images into the sky, but also the ability to transmit voices directly into people's heads. And he said this in the 1990s. Today, with augmented reality, holograms, and global communication satellites, is it really so absurd to believe such technology exists? And even stranger, why does this decades-old theory still haunt so many minds today? Topic 2, the 4 stages of Project Bluebeam. How they'd fool the world. According to Serge Monast, Project Bluebeam is not just a single event, but a detailed plan broken into 4 terrifying stages. The first begins with fake earthquakes and manipulated archaeological discoveries. The goal? To destroy the foundation of existing religions by proving that everything we've believed was a misinterpretation. Imagine, for instance, a relic being found that contradicts parts of the Bible or claims that Jesus was actually an extraterrestrial. Outrageous? That's exactly the kind of shock meant to destabilize global faith. The second stage would be the most visual. Massive holographic projections in the sky, visible all over the world at the same time. Every civilization would see its own deity. Krishna, Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha speaking their native language. The idea to unify spirituality in a way that sets the stage for a global messiah. Picture NASA controlling the sky and making billions fall to their knees before something that's not even real. The fusion of faith and technology becomes explosive. Then comes something even darker. Using electromagnetic frequencies to control people's thoughts and emotions. Literally, voices would be transmitted into minds, making people think they're hearing divine messages. The fourth and final stage? A fake alien invasion to push the world into a single, centralized government. And here's the twist. What if that last phase has already started, and we didn't even notice? Topic 3. NASA's role and the involvement of world powers. It's no coincidence that NASA's name keeps popping up in this theory. To Bluebeam believers, NASA would be the key player, the agency responsible for the visuals, the satellite coordination, and even the divine voices in people's heads. Who else has the budget, the space infrastructure, and the secrecy needed to pull something like this off? It's like giving the world's greatest magician the biggest stage on Earth, with no one allowed to question the show. But NASA wouldn't be working alone. According to online sources, the UN, powerful corporations, and a shadowy financial elite would all be in on it. We're not talking about the politicians you see on TV. We're talking about the ones behind the curtain, the ones who make the real decisions, the ones who can shut people up with a phone call. And here's the creepiest part. Why does mainstream media barely touch this topic? Could their silence be more than just ignorance? Anyone paying attention to military tech knows about directed energy weapons, autonomous drones, and experimental satellites. Now imagine those tools being used not in war, but to influence human perception. If satellites can scan your brain and drones can mimic human voices, what else is already possible? And are we already too late to stop it? Topic 4. Mysterious drones, UFOs, and the events that reignited the theory. In 2024, something seemingly small reignited the fire. Mysterious drones were seen flying over US military bases and restricted areas. But these weren't ordinary drones. They flew in formation, completely silent, and avoided interception, as if they knew the rules. For many, this wasn't surveillance. It was a rehearsal, a test for the final stage of Project Bluebeam. Soon, voices with massive reach began speaking up. Conservative figures like Charlie Kirk, celebrities like Roseanne Barr, all suggesting is a fake alien invasion on the way. With NASA unable to explain many recent UFO sightings, the dots began to connect. What was once dismissed as fantasy suddenly felt like preparation. Mainstream media either mocked or ignored it. But those who pay attention saw a pattern. Sightings increased, fear spread, and people began to look up at the sky differently. Could these drones just be the beginning? A prelude to something far more orchestrated? Topic 5. Simulating the second coming of Christ with sky holograms. Imagine looking up at the sky and seeing Jesus or Buddha or Allah speaking to you. Imagine your neighbor sees the same vision, but in their own language and religion. According to Project Bluebeam believers, NASA would use satellites and holograms to project divine figures across the globe. Each person would see what convinces them most. These projections wouldn't just look real, they'd sound real. Inner voices speaking to individuals, convincing them of a holy event. And when billions are brought to tears, kneeling before what they believe to be a miracle, who would question it? Not many. That's the terrifying part. A global religious collapse could follow, faiths would be shaken, chaos would rise, and from that chaos, a new world truth would emerge, orchestrated by those who control the illusion. If this is the plan, we must ask, what happens if the illusion is exposed mid-show? Topic 6. Mind control, sound frequencies, and mental manipulation. What if you couldn't trust your own thoughts? That's the fear behind the third stage of Project Bluebeam. Using low-frequency waves and advanced tech, NASA could, according to the theory, transmit feelings, voices, and even beliefs directly into the brain. No wires, no warnings, just thoughts that feel like your own. Sounds like science fiction? Maybe, but military-grade tech already exists that manipulates brain signals, frequencies that influence moods, devices that alter behavior. Now imagine that deployed on a global scale, not to fight a war, but to control what you believe. That's what makes this terrifying. The subtlety. No gunfire, no tanks, just a message beamed into your consciousness. If this technology exists and is already being tested, how do we know what's truly ours and what's just part of the program? Topic 7. The fake alien invasion, the final move toward a new world order. This is the final act, the one that changes everything. According to Monistas, Project Bluebeam would end with the simulation of an alien attack. Not real aliens, but perfectly choreographed spacecrafts using advanced tech to appear threatening. It would be the ultimate fear trigger. The plan? Unite humanity under one government, a global authority promising protection from a common enemy. It's not a new idea. History shows us that fear has always been the fastest way to control the masses. A fake war could create very real obedience. And the scariest part, we've seen it before. Like when a 1938 radio broadcast caused mass panic over a fictional alien invasion. That was just a voice. Now imagine what could happen with full visual effects, satellites, and government backing. Would people even question it? Topic 8. Media silence and the role of disinformation. One of the strangest pieces of this puzzle is the silence. For something this massive, why don't we hear about it on the news? Why is it treated like a joke? Or not mentioned at all? According to believers, that silence is intentional, a coordinated effort to keep the truth buried. The mainstream media, they argue, doesn't just ignore, it redirects. While people focus on scandals or celebrity gossip, the real operations unfold quietly. NASA, governments, and global elites keep the show running, while the audience looks the other way. And when real questions do arise, like drone sightings or classified UFO files, they're buried under ridicule. It's not about proving it wrong. It's about making it too crazy to believe. But if it were false, wouldn't it be easier to just prove it and move on? Topic 9. Social media's role in resurrecting the theory. While traditional media stays silent, social media became the new battlefield. It's here that Project Bluebeam resurfaced, with videos, leaked files, and user theories spreading like wildfire. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, the new arenas of truth and deception. Clips of strange lights, voices in the sky, alleged NASA whistleblowers. Algorithms may bury some, but the most powerful ones rise to the top and spark millions of views. Whether real or fake, the impact is the same. People start asking questions again. But with that power comes risk. Bots, suppression, digital censorship. All can be used to steer public opinion. So if the new war is over, what we believe, then every scroll, like, and share becomes part of the battle. Topic 10. The dangers of exposing the theory. Disappearances and silent threats. Serge Monas died suddenly, and he wasn't the only one. Over the years, others who spoke about Project Bluebeam or other classified NASA programs have reported being followed, threatened, or silenced. Some vanished entirely. Coincidence? Or cleanup? There's a chilling pattern. First, a person speaks out. Then, a tragic accident, a heart attack, a car crash, a suicide. Bluebeam believers call this selective silence, removing voices that get too close to the truth. Still, the digital age makes silencing harder. A new wave of truth seekers posts faster than secrets can be buried. But if that's a threat to the plan, will we see a new era of suppression, or has the truth already spread too far to be stopped? Topic 11. Biblical and spiritual connections to the theory. Many point to the Bible, especially the book of Revelation, when discussing Project Bluebeam. Verses about false prophets, signs in the heavens, and great deceptions sound eerily similar to the theory's stages. Could ancient texts have warned us all along? If so, NASA becomes more than a tech agency. It becomes a tool in a spiritual war, one that replaces faith with illusion, a digital god, a holographic savior, a satellite-powered second coming. When technology mimics divinity, confusion spreads. Some may kneel to the vision, others may reject it, but everyone will question reality, and maybe that's the point. Topic 12. AI, deepfakes, and the new frontier of deception. Back in the 90s, the idea of a fake Jesus in the sky sounded absurd. But today, with deepfakes, AI-generated voices, and ultra-realistic CGI, anything can be forged. Your face, your words, your God. These tools already manipulate politics, media, even finance. So what if they're just a test? What if the real goal is spiritual control, replacing truth with programmable illusion? Bluebeam, with AI, wouldn't need satellites, just a screen and belief. And when people can't trust their own senses, they turn to whoever offers answers. That's when control becomes effortless. Topic 13. Fear as a weapon of control. Fear has always been the fastest way to change behavior. Wars, diseases, economic collapse. When people panic, they obey. Project Bluebeam would be no different. Just replace tanks with visions and bullets with messages. History shows that fear makes people give up freedom for safety. A fake alien war, a false religious awakening, all perfect scenarios for a global reset. Order out of chaos. And maybe we've already been conditioned. Movies, series, news, all painting the same storylines, all shaping our expectations. So when the event arrives, we'll already know how to react. Topic 14. The global elite and the engineering of belief. Behind every theory is a puppeteer, or several. Bluebeam followers believe in an elite cabal, not just of billionaires, but of controllers, of finance, media, and culture. Not just influencing what we see, but what we believe. This is belief engineering, creating a world where everyone accepts the same truth because every authority, TV, church, school, app says the same thing, and those who disagree, silenced, banned, laughed at. In 1899, Nikola Tesla was in Colorado Springs, testing his wireless power transmission equipment, when something completely unexpected happened. He began to pick up regular signals coming from space, and they weren't random noises. They were pulses, repetitive, organized, like a code. Tesla, who wasn't exactly known for exaggeration, wrote that he believed he was receiving an intelligent message from outside of Earth. And so begins the mystery that NASA, to this day, does not officially comment on what or who was trying to talk to him. Most people think the UFO era began after World War II, but but the truth is that Tesla may have been the first modern human to make contact with something beyond our comprehension. And the most curious part, he did it long before the invention of satellites, radar, or even modern radio. There was no way interference could be a technical excuse. So, if it wasn't a mistake, what was it? And why was this simply ignored for so long? What would be the interest in silencing this kind of discovery? Some scholars believe the signal came from the so-called Black Knight satellite, an object that has supposedly been orbiting Earth for over 13,000 years. That's right, before any known civilization. An artifact that, according to theorists, is still out there, floating above our heads, monitoring. Tesla would have been the first to hear it. And if it's true, he wasn't alone. Other scientists throughout the 20th century also picked up strange signals, but not all of them dared to speak about it publicly. After all, whoever messes with this kind of thing is either ridiculed or disappears. Topic 2. Early reports in the 1950s say an unknown object is orbiting the Earth. In 1954, American newspapers published something that, for the time, seemed like pure science fiction. 2 unknown satellites were reportedly orbiting the Earth. This caused an uproar in scientific circles because the technology to launch anything into space didn't even exist yet. Sputnik would only be launched 3 years later by the Soviet Union. How could there be something up there even before the space race began? And more importantly, where did this information come from? What seemed like a journalistic slip soon became a taboo. The sources disappeared, records were archived or lost, and anyone who tried to investigate was treated like a lunatic. But if we look closely, this narrative repeats itself too often to be a coincidence. The pattern is always the same. Something inexplicable happens, the press releases a story, and soon after, everything goes silent. NASA, of course, has never commented on these reports, and perhaps never will. But the question remains, who put that thing in orbit, decades before any human rocket? Some theorists suggest that the Black Knight was just revealing itself slowly, as if giving clues. Others believe it has always been there, just waiting for the right moment to be noticed. After all, if the Earth were an experiment, it would make sense for them to monitor our evolution from the beginning. And who's to say these early reports weren't in fact a message, a sign that something much bigger was beginning? But the story goes even deeper. Topic 3. NASA's STS-88 mission photographs a strange object in space. In 1998, during the STS-88 mission, NASA captured a series of images of something intriguing. It was a dark, irregularly shaped object, apparently metallic, floating above the Earth. The photos were released, but without convincing explanations. The agency claimed it was a lost thermal blanket. Yes, a blanket. Except this blanket seemed to have defined angles, shadows consistent with solid mass, and it was in a stable orbit. Too convenient, don't you think? The problem is that NASA didn't count on the power of the internet. The images spread quickly, and soon the whole world was debating what that object was. For many, it was visual proof of the Black Knight satellite, an artifact that appeared just when we had the technology to record it. Coincidence or a response? The details of the STS-88 mission remain publicly accessible, but the debate revolves around what the agency didn't say and what they preferred to classify as an accident. Curiously, astronauts involved in the mission almost never comment on these photos. When they do, they give vague answers, avoiding details. This only fuels the suspicion even more. After all, if it were just a piece of space junk, why the silence? Why the embarrassment? Some say this was the only time the Black Knight allowed itself to be seen so clearly, and this wouldn't be the last time it left traces. Topic 4. Theorists claim the object is an alien probe over 13,000 years old. According to some independent scholars, and yes, the word independent makes all the difference here, the object known as the Black Knight is not just a piece of space junk, but an ancient alien probe, orbiting the Earth for at least 13,000 years. This theory is based on radio signals picked up throughout the 20th century, historical accounts, and mainly the object's orbital pattern, polar and retrograde, something extremely unusual for artificial satellites. And the detail that gives you chills? This orbit would be ideal for global monitoring. Now think with me, if you were a highly advanced civilization observing planet Earth for millennia, what would you do? Would you leave a probe in surveillance mode, waiting for humans to evolve enough to notice it? Well, that's exactly what proponents of this theory believe. According to them, the Black Knight would be a kind of guardian, positioned there by beings who perhaps influenced our evolution since ancient times, exactly as various Sumerian, Egyptian, and even biblical records hint. The curious thing is that some of these theories connect with mythological accounts describing gods from the sky and flying artifacts. What if these gods were, in fact, responsible for installing the Black Knight? The narrative seems absurd at first glance. until you realize that several ancient peoples speak of celestial beings, mysterious teachings, and structures aligned with constellations. Too much of a coincidence to be just folklore, right? And guess what? The clues don't stop there. Topic 5. The Black Knight's orbit doesn't follow the pattern of human satellites. One of the most intriguing things about the Black Knight is its retrograde polar orbit. That is, it crosses the planet from pole to pole in the opposite direction of Earth's rotation. This, in itself, is a huge red flag. Most artificial satellites follow the planet's rotation because it reduces fuel consumption and makes the launch much more efficient. But the Black Knight doesn't play that game. It ignores all the rules of physics that NASA usually follows. And if we weren't the ones who put it there, who was? Some engineers claim that putting something into a retrograde orbit requires absurd technology and an even more specific purpose. It's as if it were positioned exactly where it should be to cover the entire globe strategically. This further fuels the idea that we are not talking about junk or an accident, but something intentionally placed there, like a surveillance camera positioned in a system's blind spot, invisible until the right moment. And the most curious part? No country has claimed ownership of the object. No space plan, from NASA to the ESA, has records of launches that coincide with this orbit. It simply appeared, and when they try to explain it, they do so with visible embarrassment. And between us, if the world really knew that there is a silent observer orbiting above our heads for thousands of years, it would change everything. But as always, the next clue is hidden where no one wants to look. Topic 6. There are reports of radio signals coming from the Black Knight's orbit. During the 20th century, several amateur radio operators and even professional astronomers reported receiving radio signals coming directly from the Black Knight's orbit. The most curious thing is that these signals did not follow any known pattern of human communication. They came in pulses, enigmatic codes, and even repetitions that seemed deliberate. Some claim it was as if the object was responding or testing reactions. NASA, of course, has never publicly validated any of these reports, but it has also never completely debunked them. A famous case was that of engineer Duncan Lunan, who in the 1970s analyzed radio signals with strange delays and concluded that they could be coded messages sent by an alien probe near Earth. And get this, the source of these signals was in the same region as the Black Knight's orbit. Coincidence? He believed the signals indicated the probe's origin from a star in the constellation Boötes, about 13,000 light-years away. And guess what? This number repeats in all versions of the theory. 13,000 years old, 13,000 light-years, 13 millennia watching us. These signals have never been fully explained. When someone tries to study the case, obstacles soon arise. A lack of data, or the records simply disappear. Is it really a technical failure, or is someone cleaning up the tracks? After all, if there is an intelligent artifact orbiting the Earth, emitting coded signals for decades, why hasn't this made headlines? Maybe because the true impact of this discovery hasn't even begun. The question that remains is, what exactly were these signals trying to tell us? Topic 7. NASA claims it's just a lost thermal blanket, but the explanation isn't convincing. NASA's official explanation for the supposed sighting of the Black Knight is almost comical. According to them, the object recorded in 1998 by the STS-88 mission was just a thermal blanket lost during a maintenance procedure. Yes, a blanket. Except this accident has a solid shape, asymmetrical angles, appears to have its own mass, and above all, entered a stable orbit, something blankets don't usually do. And let's be honest, NASA has done incredible things, but this excuse seems like it's from a poorly written script. It is at this point that theorists begin to suspect something deeper. Why would an institution like NASA, which has the most brilliant scientists on the planet, offer such a simplistic explanation for something so complex? This raises the suspicion that we are dealing with a disinformation strategy. After all, if the public started to seriously consider that there is an alien probe orbiting the Earth, chaos would ensue. So it's easier to call it space junk and move on. And here enters the pattern we've seen in other cases involving UFOs. Deny, downplay, ridicule. The same narrative used with records from Air Force pilots, with leaked videos, with unexplained phenomena. When the questions start to get too dangerous, answers that are too simple emerge. But the problem is that the Black Knight has not disappeared. It's still there, orbiting, observing, and the next piece of this puzzle will make that even more evident. Topic 8. NASA's pattern of denial repeats in other cases involving UFOs. If there's one thing that stands out to those who study these phenomena, it's NASA's pattern of behavior. When strange images, reports, or evidence emerge, especially related to UFOs, the response is almost always the same: immediate denial, followed by a superficial explanation. This was the case with the Black Knight, with lights captured by the International Space Station. with Air Force videos that were labeled as drones or reflections. But deep down, it seems there is an unwritten protocol: never admit anything that could shake the official narrative. This strategy is very reminiscent of a damage control manual. Instead of investigating openly and inviting the public into the debate, what we see is a constant attempt to discredit witnesses and divert focus. When a trained pilot reports an object flying against all laws of physics, they are mistaken. When radars pick up craft making impossible maneuvers, the answer is system error. But how to explain so many cross-referenced reports from different places at different times with the same patterns? And in the case of the Black Knight, this pattern became even more evident. NASA never publicly investigated the radio signals. It never gave a detailed answer about the object's orbit, and it simply let the matter die, or rather it tried to, because once the seed of doubt is planted, it grows, and the more NASA tries to erase it, the more people begin to see what is hidden between the lines. And perhaps behind the scenes of all this, something much bigger is at stake. Topic 9. The relationship between the Black Knight and ancient mythology. If you study the great civilizations of antiquity carefully, you will notice a curious pattern. Almost all of them talk about gods who came from the sky, stars that descended to Earth, and entities that taught humans to build, cultivate, calculate. Now connect the dots. What if these gods were in fact space visitors? And what if the Black Knight is a remnant left by these beings, a probe that remained in orbit to continue observing what they helped start? It seems absurd until you start to notice that the clues are everywhere. In Sumerian mythology, for example, the Anunnaki are described as entities from another world. The Egyptians speak of Thoth, the god who descended from the stars to bring wisdom. The Mayans of Kukulkan, the feathered serpent from the sky. Coincidence or an echo of the same origin? These cultures had no contact with each other, lived in different times and on different continents, but they told incredibly similar stories, and almost all of them point to the sky, literally. Some researchers suggest that the Black Knight would be a silent witness to this phase of humanity, an observer left behind, like an evaluation satellite, recording our evolution, our conflicts, our progress. It doesn't interfere, it just watches, and this matches the feeling that many have when looking at the sky, that we are not alone, that something is there, watching us, and maybe waiting for the right time to reveal itself. But what exactly would it be waiting for? Topic 10. The Black Knight's resemblance to legends of celestial sentinels. Around the world, there are ancient stories that speak of celestial sentinels, entities or artifacts positioned in the heavens to watch over, protect, or even punish humanity. In various cultures, they are described as the eyes of the gods, or guardians of the firmament. And when we look at the Black Knight, this resemblance becomes unsettling. A dark, motionless, silent object hovering over the earth as if it had a purpose. It doesn't just seem like a coincidence, it seems like a modern retelling of an ancient myth. In Hindu tradition, there are mentions of the Vaimanika Shastra, ancient texts that describe flying ships Vimanas that hovered over cities and were controlled by beings from other worlds. Among the Hebrews, there was talk of the Watchers, angels sent by God to watch over humans. And even in Christian tradition, the heavens are depicted as a place of constant vigil. Could the Black Knight be the technological symbol of an ancient spiritual idea? Something that transcends religions but remains present from generation to generation? The idea of a silent presence just watching is uncomfortable. No one likes to feel observed, especially by something we don't understand. But at the same time, this figure of the eternal watcher forces us to reflect on our own actions. What if this artifact, real or symbolic, is a reminder that we were never alone? The truth is that this wouldn't be the only connection between ancient legends and modern technology, and the next clue reinforces this in a disturbing way. Topic 11. The connection between the Black Knight and signs of advanced civilizations in the past. As much as history books try to paint the past as a primitive time, the vestiges left by ancient civilizations tell another story. And if you look closely, you will notice a series of clues that point to technology far beyond what was thought possible at the time. Maps with satellite precision, constructions aligned with specific constellations, cuts in stone that defy known tools. All this raises an unsettling question. Were we taught by someone from the outside? The Black Knight theory fits like a hidden piece in this puzzle. If this probe has really been in orbit for over 13,000 years, it may have been sent precisely by these civilizations, or by those who guided them. After all, why do so many ancient structures from the pyramids of Egypt to the temples of Pumapunku seem to have been built with an eye to the sky? We're not just talking about faith, we're talking about advanced engineering, a type of knowledge that simply does not match the official narrative of our history. Some theorists suggest that the Black Knight not only observes, but perhaps was even used as a means of communication, a link between us and these higher intelligences. Imagine if this object is the alien equivalent of a black box, recording everything we have done since the beginning. And what if, one day, it is activated, or worse, answered? The truth is that we are surrounded by clues. Only those who refuse to look up don't see them. And in the most recent records, another clue has come to light. Topic 12, the deletion of data and documents related to the Black Knight. Have you ever noticed how everything involving the Black Knight seems surrounded by silence and inexplicable disappearances? Reports that vanish, recordings that are archived without explanation, and documents that simply cease to exist. When researchers try to track technical data about NASA's records related to the object, they find unavailable pages or reports with censored sections. It's as if an invisible eraser is going over history. And when the truth is erased like this, what's left is doubt and fear. This type of erasure is not new when it comes to UFOs. NASA itself has been accused of editing images from the International Space Station before making them available to the public. And with the Black Knight, the pattern repeats. Images disappear from databases, metadata is corrupted, and any attempt to question this is quickly labeled a conspiracy theory. But stop and think. Why so much effort to hide a thermal blanket? If the Black Knight were just a piece of space junk, the data should be available for anyone to consult. But when the information disappears, something even more powerful emerges. The perception that there is something there that they don't want us to see. And the more you investigate, the more evident it becomes. There is a silent war going on, not with weapons, but with files. And perhaps the biggest secret of all is hidden precisely in what has been deleted. But what's left can still be found between the lines of the next event. Topic 13, the theory that the Black Knight is linked to the simulation we live in. Now, hold on to this. What if the Black Knight isn't just an alien probe, but a component of something much larger? Some theorists dare to say that it could be part of the very system that simulates our reality. That's right. The idea that we live in a simulation, popularized by names like Elon Musk and computer theorists, gains a dark layer when the Black Knight enters the equation. Could it be a kind of satellite server? An observer placed to ensure that everything works according to the original code? The simulation theory says that our entire existence could be just an ultra-advanced program running on a supercomputer of a superior civilization. And in this context, the Black Knight would play the role of a monitoring tool, like the drones we use to watch remote areas. It floats in silence, collects data, maybe even interferes subtly, all without drawing too much attention. After all, in a good simulation system, the characters can't know they are being watched. But what if one of us started to notice? This is where it gets stranger. Many of the awakened people who claim to have experienced glitches in reality, constant déjà vu, impossible events report that they began to feel this after studying or researching the Black Knight. As if the simple act of knowing about its existence triggers some kind of alert. A glitch in the system, a flaw in the matrix. It may sound crazy until you start connecting the signals. And the most bizarre part, this connection goes beyond theory. It appears in recent reports, and also in unexplained incidents that have been happening up there. Topic 14, reports of interference and anomalies. When the Black Knight passes over certain regions, several radio operators, amateur astronomers, and even pilots have reported electromagnetic anomalies when the Black Knight passes over certain regions of the Earth. Signal interference, unexplained noises, loss of communication. Some of these occurrences are so precise that they seem almost programmed, as if the object turns off certain frequencies as it approaches. And of course, when this happens, the official explanation is always the same: technical failure. But when these failures follow a pattern, they no longer seem so accidental. There are reports from commercial pilots who, when crossing flight zones near the Black Knight's orbit, experienced disturbances in their navigation instruments, spinning compasses, blocked radar systems, and even incomprehensible messages on the radios. And when they report this, silence. No deep analysis, no public investigation. It seems the standard protocol is observe, note, but don't ask too many questions. But those who are paying attention begin to notice the frequency of these events. And the most curious part, many of these disturbances always happen at the same points on the planet. Specific lines, regions known for mysterious events, like the Bermuda Triangle, the Sea of Japan, or uninhabited polar areas. Coincidence? Maybe. But what if the Black Knight is actually using these points as energy portals, or as system maintenance zones? It sounds like a sci-fi script, until you see the data. And the final piece of this puzzle may be hidden in something even deeper: the manipulation of our own perception of reality. Topic 15. The government's fear of confirming the Black Knight's existence. Now imagine the following scenario. NASA calls a press conference and declares that yes, there is an unidentified object orbiting the Earth for thousands of years, that they don't know who put it there, or how, or why. Have you ever stopped to think about the psychological and cultural chaos that this would cause? The government's fear of admitting the existence of the Black Knight is not just institutional, it's strategic, because acknowledging this object would be opening the doors to an avalanche of questions that would challenge our entire understanding of reality. And it's not just about science. We're talking about philosophical, religious, and political implications. Who has the right to speak with them? What if the ancient gods were in fact astronauts? What if we are not the owners of the planet, just observed tenants? These are the kinds of questions that bring down systems, that destabilize populations, that expose how fragile the structure of control is. Therefore, the Black Knight continues to be treated as a joke, as an urban legend, but never as an official threat. Deep down, the biggest fear is not the object itself. The real terror for governments is the loss of the monopoly on truth. When people discover that there is something out there that defies all explanations, they begin to seek answers on their own. And that is the point of no return. Because once you know, you can't unknow. And perhaps for this very reason, the Black Knight remains silent, waiting for the right moment, or the right person. But what happens when it is finally revealed? And it's not just about science. We're talking about philosophical, religious, and political implications. Who has the right to speak with them? What if the ancient gods were in fact astronauts? What if we are not the owners of the planet, just observed tenants? These are the kinds of questions that bring down systems, that destabilize populations, that expose how fragile the structure of control is. Therefore, the Black Knight continues to be treated as a joke, as an urban legend, but never as an official threat. Deep down, the biggest fear is not the object itself. The real terror for governments is the loss of the monopoly on truth. When people discover that there is something out there that defies all explanations, they begin to seek answers on their own. And that is the point of no return. Because once you know, you can't unknow. And perhaps for this very reason, the Black Knight remains silent, waiting for the right moment, or the right person. But what happens when it is finally revealed? If all of this is actually true, and you know that many pieces fit together frighteningly well, then the question that really matters is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to ignore it, pretend none of this matters, or are you going to start questioning what has always been handed to you on a platter as absolute truth? Because one thing is certain, after learning about the Black Knight, you will never be the same. Have we been watched for millennia? Is all of this just the tip of an iceberg that hides secrets about the origin of humanity, the control of information, and NASA's true role in this story? And what if all this is connected to that déjà vu you felt, with that feeling of being watched? Or with the memory blackouts that no one can explain? Now I ask you, do you believe the Black Knight satellite is real? Or do you still think it's just too much of a coincidence? Comment down below. I want to know what you think about this. And if you want to continue unraveling the best-kept secrets in human history, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and prepare yourself mentally, because in the next video, the truth will be even harder to ignore.